Everyone, welcome to Federal and State Affairs. We'll start off with bill introductions this morning. Do we have any? Senator Corson, please. Had a brain cramp there for a second. Sorry about that.
Hey, you're good, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much for the privilege of being able to do this. Quick introduction, RS number 23RS0063. Short and simple bill. All this would do is set up a voluntary process by which municipalities can remove, if they want to, from HOA documents, restricted covenants in instances where there's no longer an active HOA in place.
Very good. Committee, any questions? Any discussion? Seeing none, if there's no objections, that bill is introduced. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think I see Senator Tyson has some bill introductions for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have two bill requests. One of them is on nullification process for the state of Kansas.
What's that RS number?
Jason has that number.
Okay. Okay.
And yes.
Committee, any questions or discussion? Seeing none, if there's no objections, that is introduced.
Thank you. And the second one would be a delegate selection process in case a Article 5 convention is ever called.
Any discussion or questions? Any objections? Seeing none, that bill is introduced.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other bill introductions?
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, Senator Blasey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. RS number 0518. This is a simple bill that repeals KSA 656702B, which is a ban on political subdivisions on regulating abortion in the state of Kansas.
Any discussion? Any questions? Any objections? Seeing none, that bill is introduced, yes. That bill is introduced. Any other bill introductions? Seeing none, we'll move on. At this point, I'm not sure the proper motion for that. I guess reconsider Senate Bill 3. Do we have a motion to do so?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like for us to reconsider our actions on Senate Bill 3 yesterday. The purpose of this motion is to allow the bill not to go to the consent calendar and to be debated on the floor. The Secretary of the Senate said it would be cleaner and faster to process than going ahead and pulling it off and causing an additional delay.
Okay. So we have that motion. Do we have a second? Second by Senator Clues. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion say aye. All those opposed, nay. That passes. So we will, Senator Peterson.
Mr. Chair, I move that we pass Senate Bill 3 out, favorable for passage.
Do we have a second? Senator Clues, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. That passes. So Senate Bill 3 will go to the floor, not on the consent calendar, but on the regular docket. Thank you, Senator. Any other discussions or questions before we move on? Seeing none, today we have an overview of the Division of Alcoholic Beverage Control. We have Debbie Beavers, who is the director of that. And Debbie, welcome to Senate Federal and State Affairs. By the way, folks, you can watch this presentation online, of course. You can go to our website, go to committees, go to the Kansas Legislature.org website, go to committees tab, select standing, look for Senate, then look for Federal and State Affairs, and under there, there'll be a little committee testimony with a date box. You click on the date box, today's date will be highlighted, and that testimony will be available right there. Okay, Debbie, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Debbie Beavers, and I'm the Director of Alcoholic Beverage Control. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I will be giving an overview of the ABC and a little bit of history before I get into the briefing that was provided. I think it would be good. We have several new members on the committee this year. So just to start off, the mission of the ABC is to promote, serve, protect the safety, welfare, and health of Kansans by regulating the liquor industry, enforcing the liquor laws and other laws administered by the Department of Revenue. So just a brief history and overview of ABC. Alcohol in Kansas. Kansas has been a historically conservative state. In 1880, Kansas was the very first state where voters passed prohibition, a full 40 years before the rest of the country. If that wasn't enough, in 1917, Governor Capper signed the Bone Dry Bill, which prohibited the sale of medicinal alcohol as well. In 1933, Congress passed the Cullen-Harrison Act, which defined beer with less than 3.2% alcohol by weight as non-intoxicating. Therefore, after that bill was passed, each state could enact laws to allow 3.2 beer. So that was in 1933. In 1937, Kansas legislature passed the CMB Act, and the legal drinking age was 18 at that time. In 1948, Kansas voters were the third to the last state to repeal prohibition. ABC was established and enacted the initial liquor laws in 1949. ABC was originally a freestanding agency and later became a division within the Department of Revenue. There's a few statutes I'd like to point out to you for statutory authority. KSA 41-101 prohibits everything relating to alcohol unless it's specifically authorized in the statute. So it's a little different than how most laws are written. If it doesn't say you can, you can't. KSA 41-210 gives the director the broad discretionary power to regulate alcohol. 41-201 provides law enforcement authority to ABC director and the ABC enforcement agents as authorized by the Secretary of Revenue. KSA 41-208 provides the power to regulate all phases of alcoholic liquor rests exclusively with the state. And finally, KSA 41-209 gives the director power to issue and revoke licenses, call upon local governments, law enforcement, and prosecutors to assist, inspect premises where alcoholic liquor is sold, conduct hearings and issue administrative subpoenas, and collects license fees. Now, there are three types of alcohol. We have liquor, we have cereal malt beverage, which is the 3.2 beer by weight or less, and then we also have non-alcoholic liquor, which contains less than 0.5% alcohol by weight. Alcoholic liquor has actually three types. We have spirits, your distilled spirits, you have wine, and beer. Kansas is a licensed state, and we use the three-tier system. The first tier are your suppliers. They are out-of-state manufacturers or importers or in-state manufacturers. They sell directly to Kansas distributors, and the Kansas distributors sell to the retail level, which is your retail liquor stores and your on-premise establishments. Purposes of the three-tier system were to have checks and balances. Distributors also act as a buffer between the manufacturers and the retailers, and it was originally enacted to encourage moderation and protect tax collections. Speaking of taxes, there are several taxes that are applied to liquor depending on where it is. The first tax is gallonage tax, and that is paid by the in-state manufacturer, farm winery, microbrewery, or microdistillery at the time of manufacture, or the Kansas distributor who first imports the alcohol into Kansas. Tax rates are spirits, $2.50 a gallon. Fortified wine is 75 cents per gallon. Light wine is 30 cents per gallon. And beer and cereal malt beverages taxed at 18 cents per gallon. The next tax is liquor enforcement tax, and that is collected by retail liquor stores on their sales of all alcoholic liquor and CMB that is sold by the retail liquor store. It is a trust tax. It is collected on behalf of the state and remitted to the state by the 25th of the following month, and it is 8% on those purchases of alcohol and CMB sold by the retail liquor store. Liquor drink tax is the next tax, and it is collected by an on-premise licensee that's licensed by the ABC. It is also a trust tax. collected for the state and remitted by the 25th of the following month, and it is 10% on the price of an individual drink, pitcher, or bottle of wine that is sold by the on-premise licensee. State sales tax applies to the C&B retailers. Those C&B retailers sell the 3-2 beer or beer not more than 6%. The rate is the state sales tax rate plus the local rate, and it is for both the on-premise and off-premise C&B retailers. We do issue licenses, and I think it's important to point out that applicants to hold a liquor license must meet statutory requirements. All licenses are valid for a 2-year period. Permits are for a 1-year period except non-beverage permits and temporary permits. Licensees must be current on their liquor taxes in order to renew their license. And during the license process, our representatives do screen for what we call a hidden ownership, because sometimes an ineligible person will try to obtain a license in somebody else's name. So when we see a random person's name popping up on paperwork, we do flag that and send it to one of our enforcement agents to do an investigation on that. Licensee sanctions, we do issue administrative citations against licensees suspected against violating liquor laws. They do have an opportunity for a hearing. Those hearings are compliant with the Kansas Administrative Procedures Act, and they are held before the ABC director. We do have penalty types of monetary fines. We have temporary suspensions, and we have revocations, which is permanent, which means they can never get a license again if their license is revoked. A licensee may appeal the director's decision to the Secretary of Revenue for reconsideration, and from there it goes to the Shawnee County District Court, the Court of Appeals, and the Supreme Court. So this concludes just a brief overview of a little bit of history of ABC and the regulation of the industry. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to either pause for questions or move on to the briefing I prepared.
Very good. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, I think we can move right on.
Okay, thank you. The legislative briefing, you should have a copy of that. I just want to point out some of the important things. ABC, our priorities have been placed very heavily on customer service. We take a lot of pride in providing excellent customer service, and we want to help our licensees to be compliant. We also want to improve our division efficiencies and services and administer the laws in an efficient, fair, and effective manner. Some of the ways we do that are education. Our local agent hand delivers most new liquor licenses that are in state. Sometimes their schedule won't allow that, and we mail it out, but they do an educational visit within 14 days of that license being issued. This gets the licensee off on a good start. It helps to build a partnership with ABC. They know who their agent is, and it gets them started on the right foot. And I'm happy to report to you that 99% of those licenses were either hand-delivered or an educational was provided within 14 days of the license being issued. Prior to this process, we used to mail out a license, and an agent would get there within 90 days. And in 90 days, they could be doing a lot of things that they shouldn't be. So this has been very successful to do that. Our agents also do a lot of educational visits. They do them on request for licensees and stakeholders. We also try to focus on changing the behavior of repeat violators through education and enforcement efforts. If a licensee fails a compliance check, we go back in the next 60 days and do a secondary check after we've done some education with them. We also have online services. In 2022, 93% of all of our applications were received online, and we're just finishing up a request for proposal for some enhancements to our system, which will make it a little more user-friendly for our applicants to apply online, less forms to fill out and upload, and more fields to fill in that will be pre-populated on renewal. So we're excited about that. That will be coming. And then our website, we've strived to make it user-friendly, 3 clicks or less to get to the information that you want. We have links to statutes and regulations. We also provide handbooks for each license, which is written in layman's terms, and it has the the basics outlined for them in the statutory reference, and that's very helpful for our licensees. And then we have a Facebook page that's also geared towards licensee and stakeholders. And then we do participate with the industry. We interact, we participate in meetings, we provide timely responses, and we're promoting an open and transparent communication. Next thing I'd like to talk to is on page 2, the shipments of alcoholic liquor to Kansas residents. This past year, common carriers reported 166,898 shipments of alcoholic liquor to Kansas residents. Those are known shipments. Those are marked alcoholic liquor. There are shipments that are being sent in that are not lawful and that are unmarked. So I had previously reported to the committee about unlawful shipments being a known problem. It's not just a Kansas problem, it's a nationwide problem. The concerns are unlicensed entities, they're not regulated. Some don't have a license in the state that they're shipping from, or they're not licensed with the federal government, which is the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, or known as the TTB. The only lawful shipments direct to Kansas consumers are a wine manufacturer, and if they have to have a special order shipper's license, and that applies to in-state and out-of-state wine manufacturers. If they're not licensed, they don't label it. They don't mark it as alcoholic liquor. So and the statute for the special order shippers requires it to say alcoholic beverages, adult signature required. It's very easy to order alcohol online. We did some operations a couple of years ago where we just ordered from unsolicited advertisements that popped up on Facebook pages and such. They weren't authorized to ship. In fact, we had spirits that was handed to a 7-year-old because it wasn't marked. And so it's a big problem. And safety, public health and safety, these unlicensed entities are not regulated. And one of the shipments we tracked to a storage container in Florida. It wasn't temperature controlled, it was just a storage container. So the risk for tainted or fake alcohol is great. You don't see in the United States problems like you've probably read about in Central America, Mexico, the Dominican Republic, some of those countries where they don't have a solid regulated system. You don't see this problem much in the United States, the tainted and fake alcohol. And there's also a significant loss of revenue to the state because they're not licensed, they're not paying gallonage tax, and they're not paying liquor enforcement taxes. So the ability for us to identify those shippers is critical. We also have fulfillment houses, which are big warehouses that fulfill wine shipper orders. They report monthly, and then we have the special order shippers who report quarterly. So you'll likely be seeing some legislation coming so that the special order shippers will be reporting monthly. Our chief enforcement officer is also now on a committee with the National Liquor Law Enforcement Association, a work group that's trying to address these unlawful shipments. So I'm very excited that he's participating in that. Moving along, I've got the highlights of the legislation that was changed last year. On page 4, I have an organizational chart for you. ABC, when fully staffed, has 42 positions. We currently have 5 vacant positions, 1 administrative position, and 4 ABC enforcement agent positions are vacant. Then I have a breakdown of the duties on administration and licensing. On page 5, I have just some graphs for you. Total liquor licenses and permits when we pulled this at the beginning of the year was 6,882. I've got a category breakdown for you on page 6. Approved alcoholic beverage labels. You may or may not know that each and every label of alcoholic liquor has to be submitted to us and approved prior to shipment into Kansas. We had 60,269 labels approved earlier this month when we pulled that stat, and we have one remarkable person in our office who does all of this for us. Cereal malt beverage, back in 2017, the legislature changed a law allowing the cereal malt beverage retailers not only to sell the 3.2 beer, but beer not 6% or less. In addition to that, with their CMB license, they are licensed by their local city or county, whoever has jurisdiction, and there is a state stamp that is applied to that license. We do not license them, but we do have oversight over the beer sales. We have some charts here that are related to the report that is required to the legislature in 2027. Off-premise retailer comparison to retail liquor stores. We have 724 retail liquor stores. Prior to this change that went into effect in 2019, we ran about 750 liquor stores, give or take a few, for quite a few years. So we've lost a few liquor stores, and then the CMB off-premise, which would be your convenience stores, grocery stores, 1,997. The same comparison for your on-premise, which is your drinking establishments, clubs, caterers, or your taverns that have the CMB. CMB, we had 961, and we had 2,766 liquor license on-premise. And these statistics for CMB are reported to us by the city and county who issues that license. On page 7, I have some statistics on revenues collected. The one thing I would like to call your attention to is the gallonage tax on beer and cereal malt beverage. As you can see, in 2019, the gallonage tax on beer or on CMB was 1.2 million-ish, and it's down to about 89,000. And that's exactly what was expected as the manufacturers quit making a 3-2 version of the same product. Now they can sell the original product, so it's exactly what we've seen expected. We've seen the cereal malt beverage gallonage tax go down while the beer goes up. So our enforcement unit, move on to that. We have 18 positions, and they are all funded. We have 4 vacancies right now, and we have 3 enforcement supervisors and a chief enforcement officer. They do a lot of education and training. They investigate as necessary for the hidden ownerships, license qualifications, underage activities. They do the compliance checks. We utilize underage cooperating individuals when they do that. And we do investigate 100% of all complaints that are received by the ABC. They also do enforce the liquor laws. We do routine inspections. We do joint operations with other law enforcement agencies on public safety-related issues to underage. We have fake ID task force, and Operation Safe Streets are a couple of those that we do. And then any alleged violations are presented to our Assistant Attorney General to determine whether or not they want to take administrative action against the licensee. So in fiscal year 2022, we did 527 liquor investigations. We did 415 license delivery and educational visits and 3,028 inspections. It is our goal to inspect 100% of our licensees each year. We have had quite a few vacancies last year. The previous year, we had more vacancies than we do right now, but we've done a good job at covering those. I think we missed the mark this past year by just a little bit, but our agents are always willing to go out and help in those areas where we have a vacancy and get those checks done. Underage sales, the compliance checks in fiscal year 2022 for liquor licensees, 82% were compliant when we did the check, so that means 82% of the time they didn't sell to a minor. When we did the follow-up check, 92% were compliant, so that is the way we would like it to be. For this CMB retailer compliance checks, we did 364 random checks. The chosen checks were the ones that we went back for a compliance check because of a sale, and then other ones were complaints. We did 52 of those. The CMB compliance rate was 86% compliant on the first check, and if they did sell when we went back, it was 79% compliant. So on the CMB licensees, it was not the desired outcome that we want, but we do continue to work with them. Our legal department, in fiscal year 2022, we issued 208 citations for liquor violations and 203 liquor tax violation citations. Page 11, we collected $106,900 on administrative violation fines and $104,940.32 on liquor tax violation fines. We also issued 80 CMB citations and collected $43,450 in CMB fines. Our ABC agents do enforce the tax on illegal drugs. They issue the tax assessments, the tax warrants, and secure property from these drug tax violators when they don't have the state drug tax stamp on their illegal drugs. The Department of Revenue Taxation Division set a minimum of $1,000 for those cases. So in fiscal year 2022, we did 95 drug tax assessments. And the tax department is responsible for collecting the taxes due. And then finally, I'd like to talk about license surveys. We do take a lot of pride in providing good customer service. We do surveys to each new licensee or permit holder that sends us an email address. And we send them a survey, and their responses are anonymous, but it focuses on their licensing process, the license delivery, education provided by their local agent. And we do a random sampling of 25% of our existing licensees over the course of the year. And we survey them randomly on customer service, division services, and regulation of the industry. And overall, our responses were 91.2% positive for this last year. Finally, I'd just like to mention that Kansas ABC was the host state for the National Conference of State Liquor Administrators annual conference. That was in June in Overland Park, and we had about 325 attendees at that conference. To the best of my knowledge, Kansas had never hosted an annual conference, so we were really excited to do that and show off the state of Kansas. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Debbie. Committee, any questions? Senator Reichman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. I want to jump back for your history thing, if you don't mind. I know I should have asked it earlier. I was doing something else, thinking something. On the Constitution, we passed the 18th Amendment. This is going to be easy. It won't be hard. And in the 1919, then in the 30s, 33 or whatever it was, we repealed that. So I was thinking that it went all the way across the United States that happened. But you mentioned that Kansas was the third to the last. So does that mean that each state then had to pass it in their legislature?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I learned something this morning. Thank you. And then on your presentation, if I may ask another question.
Yes.
Right at the beginning, you're talking about the shipment of alcohol liquor to Kansas residents. And the concern when they're not credible for whatever reason. As you look at the numbers, in 2020 it was 198,000 plus, and then 21 is 212, and then 22 is 166,000. So we see a decline on that. Could you, are you guys doing a better job? They're not doing it, we're not catching it, or could you just expand on that just, but thank you.
Absolutely. Those are known shipments. And in 2022, there was a change where special orders were reporting annually. There was a change to quarterly, and there were some late reports that are included in that. So that number, that's when we got it. So that's how we reported it. But so that number is a little bit inflated, and there may be a little bit of that number being larger due to COVID and people weren't getting out, so there might have been a few more folks ordering.
That was my concern, because I thought there would be more because of COVID. It wouldn't be written out, but order. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Senator Blasey.
Hey, Debbie, good to see you. Out of the 105 counties we have in our state, how many are still dry counties?
Three.
Wow. So, and this is probably far southwest Kansas still, is that right?
I believe so.
And so dry counties, is that where you can't go into like a restaurant and order a drink? liquor drink, is that correct?
That is correct. You can have a private club, and you have to be a member of the club.
And then the voters of Butler County, I believe, just this last November, went from 30% to unlimited liquor purchases, is that correct?
I would have to.
Recall?
You know, is that right? Yes, yes, they did remove the 30.
Do we know how many counties do that? Is that common, or is that primarily urban counties?
It's kind of spread across the state, and it's been a little bit of a trend the last few years where they've been lifting that. I do have a map of that, and I'll be happy to send it over to the chairman to spread that out so you can see the map of the wet and dry counties and who has 30% and who doesn't.
That's perfect. And so, and just last question, in comparison to the rest of the country, is Kansas still kind of one of the last states that still do that type of dry county, 30%? Or is that still a norm in many states across the country?
I believe Oklahoma has some dry counties, but I'm not sure as far as the rest of the country, but I believe Oklahoma and maybe Texas may still have a couple.
Senator Clues.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Debbie, for the presentation. The unmarked tainted that you talked about, how dangerous is that, and have we had any issues in Kansas, especially when you're talking about children receiving these packets that are not identified? If you could speak to that.
We have not had any cases that I am aware of tainted alcoholic liquor or fake alcoholic liquor. One of the things that was talked about at the National Conference of State Liquor Administrators about 3 years ago at a conference was the fake alcohol. And, you know, for instance, Pappy Van Winkle is a very expensive bourbon. It's hard to get. And so they might sell the empty bottle on a eBay or some other website, and then one of these people, unlawful sellers, will then fill the container and seal it and then sell it as the original product, but you don't really know what's in that product. But to answer your question, I'm not aware of any problems in Kansas as far as the tainted or fake alcohol, but I'm sure there probably have been cases.
I think we also, your first set of notes that weren't online, could we get a PDF of those to distribute? I think the committee would appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Also, back to the shipments question, what carriers are the problem carriers? I'm assuming somebody like an Amazon is complying with, or maybe not. I don't know of too many other different shippers out there. Where are you finding the problems?
The problem is the business that is selling it, the alcohol. They're not licensed. They don't mark the package. They can take it to FedEx or UPS or even put it in the post office, although you're not supposed to mail it USPS. But anyway, they don't mark the package, so they don't know what they're shipping. And so that's the problem. But once we can get these match reports, all three on monthly, we can see what shipments fall out that aren't licensees, and we can do a better job of working those cases that we do know about.
So I would imagine enforcement of that's tough.
Very.
Yeah, very, very difficult. Committee, any other questions? Seeing none, Debbie, thank you for your presentation. We appreciate that very much. Committee, we will have no meetings tomorrow or Monday, but we will reconvene on Tuesday. And seeing no other discussions or business, we are adjourned. Thank you.